Hey everybody, Garcia here. Today we're taking a look at a new printing of a classic cooperative game. This is the Lord of the Rings Anniversary Edition. Now, what anniversary are we talking about here? Well, this game is 20 years old, and they have reprinted it. They put Anniversary Edition on the cover, but it largely looks like previous editions of the game. At one point, this game came out in a box that looked like this. Then it went through a period in which it was being printed in the Fantasy Flight Games Silver line, which is a smaller box, a cheaper production, and a lower price tag. And now we have it again in this edition. So what do I think of it as far as this game itself goes and this production of the game? What is the Anniversary Edition here bringing to the table? Before I get into that, let's go ahead and take a look at how the game works. If you know the game because it's a classic, feel free to skip this. If not, let me show you what it's all about, and then I'll see you on the other side. At the beginning of the game, every player is going to be one of the hobbits here. You select who you want to be. If you're playing with 3 players, as I am here in the demo, you have Frodo, Sam, and Pippin. So everybody gets one of these. You're going to set them here at the beginning of the track. Normal difficulty is set right here at 12, but you can go easier than that, or you can go harder than that by being closer to the hobbits. And then you set up all of this other stuff. Someone is going to be the ring bearer, Frodo, at the beginning of the game. So you give the player that token there, and then you are largely ready to begin. You're going to be following kind of this story up here. This is the flow of the game. And you either end the game prematurely in defeat, or you make it all the way to Mordor and you cast the ring into the fires of Mount Doom, and you win the entire thing. No matter which way it ends, you're going to score victory points, and you'll keep track of your score, really just for the sake of seeing how well you did compared to the last time you played or the next time you played. All right, so here's how this goes. At the beginning, I'm going to run you kind of through again the story till we get to this down here. This isn't even set out at the beginning, but it's already there. So we start right here. It says every player is going to draw 6 quest cards. So you go ahead and from this deck, give everybody 6 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this might be my opening hand. Okay? These cards here are my opening hand. And then after that, it says that the ring bearer may roll this die to distribute another 4 cards. If you do so, something bad might happen to you. That side and that one show 1, 2, or 3 dots, pips. That means you advance that many steps towards the darkness. So if they did that and rolled the 1, then you step up to that spot. There's also this one that Sauron advances 1 up on the group. I know this looks like one of the Black Riders, but they call it Sauron in the game. And then you've also got this one that forces you to discard cards right there. On a blank side, you do have 1 blank side. So that happens. If you want to do it, that's optional. Then you can draw another 4 cards, look at those, discuss with the players, divvy them up. And then lastly here we have that one player has to discard 2 cards with shields. So say, for example, these 2 cards showing shields there, or otherwise, this moves up on the group. Once that's done, and we've done steps 1, 2, and 3 here, we move this token to there. And we go through the steps at Rivendell. And this one says the active player will distribute the Rivendell legendary items. So you'd grab these and give everybody a certain amount. Depending on the number of players, everybody gets a different amount. There are 12 of these cards. So with 4 players, everybody gets 3. Okay? And then once that's done, you are going to go to the next step. Every player has to pass 1 card face down to the player on their left. And lastly, everybody has to discard 1 of the pipes on the cards. I'll show you one of those. If you do not have one, so everybody has to discard 1 of these. Maybe that's meant to be cooking. No, it's a pipe. So you discard 1 of those, and then whoever cannot has to roll the die. Once that's done and you've done those 3 steps, then we go to Moria. You see Moria doesn't have a text box attached to it. That's because Moria is an action board down here, and we take all of the action down there. That's really where the game mostly happens. The rest is, well, upkeep, right? And there are 4 boards in this game. You've got Moria there. Then we're going to have another pseudo upkeep step at Lothlorien. Then we go to Helm's Deep. On the back of that board, I believe, Shelof's Lair, which is another board. Let me open this up. Right there. And then lastly, Mordor itself. Right there. Okay? So each one of these having two sides. And like I said, Helm's Deep's on the back of that one there. That's how it works. That's the flow of the game. So let's talk about what's going on down there. At the beginning, once we arrive at Moria there, the ring bearer is going to take their turn. And you do that by drawing one of these tokens. You shuffle all these up. And then you take one at random. And it'll tell you either something good happens or something bad happens. In this case, it shows you a figure there, okay? A traveling symbol. These tracks represent different activities, such as fighting, hiding, traversing, things like that. So this symbol here is on this top track right there. Flee to the exit of Moria. That means you advance one, and you are going to get whatever you land on. In this case, it's one of these runes, and you would take it over here from the supply and put that in front of you. So again, the player who is playing as Frodo takes this. And in fact, I'll have Frodo. Where's your little card? Frodo, there you are. That's going to be Frodo right there. They have a special ability, by the way, as well. All the players do that. Once you've done that, you draw a thing, you move on a track, then you may play up to 2 cards as long as they are different colors. And the colors are, I know these are kind of hard to tell apart. I know they are in person. I don't know on camera. It's brown and gray. So you can play one of each. Frodo has a special ability that lets, the ability says the brown cards can be wild. Now, this one's wild anyway, but they can play this card as one of the other symbols to move along on more tracks. As you move along, you're going to land on these symbols here. You'll collect the matching tokens, the ring and the life and the sun there. And you are collecting those, hoping to have one of each, so that at the end of Moria here, you're not penalized and moved towards the light, okay? So there we go. We do that, and then Frodo plays a couple of cards. Maybe they play, they're going to play, let's see. Going to play that one. Move up on there. That spot says you get a special card. Fine, we draw that special card, and you take it into your hand. You'll notice a lot of these cards simply show symbols. Sometimes they have text on them. And then they could play another one. Or they could not. They could also, instead of playing a couple of cards like this and moving like so, instead of doing that, and this is a full turn, you could not play cards and instead either draw 2 cards or move 1 step back on this corruption track up here after you draw a token. Now, not every token lets you draw 1 token and then play your card. Some of these tokens you have to deal with. They're bad things, and then you have to draw another token. You keep doing that until you get a token that isn't bad. This one, for example, this time token, simply means this token moves down over here, and you deal with the effect. These are typically punishing things that get worse and worse, and this scenario is going to be done, Moria, when we get with this marker all the way to the end right here, or this token gets all the way to the end here, typically with terrible repercussions, okay? So there you go. Now, after you do that, though, you move this down, you deal with this group, discard 1 pipe and 1 wild, otherwise Sauron moves 1. Once that's done, you draw again. If it's bad again, you deal with it and you draw again until you get something that isn't, like this one. Now, if you got a symbol here that isn't one of the tracks, you just move whichever one you want. But that's only for the tokens, not for the cards. You cannot play a card with symbols that aren't represented. They're not always all out, okay? So there you go. This continues, like I said, until this typically gets all the way there. Once that's done, we are going to figure out who is missing which of these tokens. For any one you are missing, you're meant to have all 3. You will move 1 step towards the darkness. I know that one of the hobbits only needs 2 of the 3. I forget if that's Pippin. Yeah, Pippin. No, not Pippin. Merry, who is not in my example, but Merry here only needs 2 of the 3 different kinds of symbols, okay? And then the new ring bearer will be whoever has the most of these ring tokens. And then we move on. We go from Moria here to Lothlorien, and again, you get some new cards, you do some new stuff. You then move on to Helm's Deep, in which we do this and flip it over and put the tokens on these tracks and go through that one. You'll see a number associated with the central track. That's for score. It'll help you figure out what your score is. Now, other things along the way. The reason to collect these runes, again, they help your score, I think, at the end. But also the other reason to collect them is that you can invoke Gandalf's help by spending those. If you spend 5, you can use one of these supremely powerful special abilities. Each one of those can only be done once per game. So things like one player moves 2 steps towards the light. One player can look at and rearrange the top 3 story tiles over here. One player can draw 4 quest cards, or after moving the marker to a new event, ignore the event. Things like that. But again, you can only do these each once per game. So that's basically what's going on. You will all lose if, like I said, you get to a symbol that says you lose. There's a symbol for that. Or if, eventually you catch up over here and, once the writer catches up to the players, then the game is also over. And the ring has been taken at that point. So there you go. There's a lot of these cards for the different locations. They will be given to you by the boards, as listed here and here and here, or by the writing that says, hey, divvy these cards out. But that's pretty much it. Hopefully this gives you an idea of how the game works if you are not familiar with it. Let's go ahead and go back up top. Let me tell you what I think of it. Before I get into my thoughts, my 2021 thoughts on this game, and especially this edition of the game, let me point out I own this game. I've owned it for many years. Right here, this edition. This copy of the game is my copy of the game and has been so since a long time ago when I bought it at a Borders bookstore. So there you go. That lets you know how long it's been. So I am a fan of it. And while I haven't played it in a long time till now that I replayed it, this edition, I still owned it. So I had those, it's sort of a nostalgic feel for this game. So getting back to this one. Like I said in the opening, this game went through a period there where it was out of print, and then they reprinted in that silver line, right? Cheaper components, not a great production. But it was what they were doing. They were making it a cheaper production. This edition, in the same sized box, and I will be comparing these side by side, by the way, so stay tuned for that, feels cheap. But it comes in this size box, and it's a full production of the game. So there's a lot of things about it I don't like, and the game is certainly starting to show its age. A production like this does not help. Let's break it down, shall we? So we're going to start right at the top with the theme. It shows its age. That's my biggest takeaway. There have been... This was a very engaging, very interesting game from the onset, when it first came out, especially if you were a big fan of The Lord of the Rings. You almost had to be a fan of The Lord of the Rings to follow this very sort of scripted story and go along for the ride. Yeah, of course, things are happening along the way, but there is a set order of things, right? Now, there are so many Lord of the Rings games, and there are so many more thematic, more engaging, bombastic, or captivating Lord of the Rings games that have done wonderful things in that setting. This one feels old, and that theme doesn't really shine through as much as it maybe did once, okay? The aesthetics here are pretty terrible. I dislike I think everything. I think everything in this game I dislike or I like less than in my version of the game. Now, this is not a fancy schmancy edition. It's just the one that was out, in the early 2000s. 2002, something like that. And this one, I would say every part of it is worse. I think the fact that the 2 card colors are gray and brown, and the brown, there are kind of a few shades of brown. It varies a little bit. Is insane. I mean, at a glance, there are green cards in there too. Those are special cards. But the main deck, the one you're going to be looking at the entire game, is dark brown and dark gray. Also, the symbols are on the sides of the cards instead of up in the corners where we've been putting pips to cards for over 100 years at the very least. So there's that. This figure doesn't make really sense. They had a figure like this in an expansion to the original game as the Black Rider. But now I guess this was cheaper to manufacture. The plastic certainly feels cheap. Okay, it's you can tell it's sort of cut rate plastic. There is that. I think the look of everything, the printing's a little dark on everything. The tokens and the clip art is really cheap looking. These tokens are terrible looking. I mean, this image, especially of the little hobbit there walking, just it's a really bad sort of, they turned on the glow around the image and slapped it on there, and then there is like the texture on the inside gray around him, and then a texture on the outside around it, very sharp corners on everything, so everything's it's a terrible look. Everything looks that way. The artwork is a carryover. Though it's presented, it's in probably its sort of worst iteration. And all this artwork is the original artwork that I have in my copy. They showed it off better in that one. And again, the printing's a little less dark. But everything else around it, unfortunately, really, really doesn't look good. I was very disappointed by the quality of that, okay? So there is that. The replay value. It's gone down, I would say. It feels, in some ways, scripted. And this would have been a great opportunity for the anniversary edition of the game to include some of the expansions that came out a long time ago, are hard to find, which would have been a great opportunity to reprint something hard to find and celebrate the fans of the game and go, hey, yeah, we're putting out Lord of the Rings again, the Reiner Knizia one. Yeah, the components don't look great. Yeah, the graphic design is one of our weaker products, but the expansions are included. You can't get those. So here you go to celebration of the game. No, it's not. It's the core box. That's it. So that's a missed opportunity, and it hurts the replayability. The game arc. The game arc of this game was always interesting. It had its ups and downs. There were moments of triumph, moments of fear, tension as you flipped over a tile. That holds true. Okay, that is still there. The game is the same game. So that has, I think, stood the test of time. Reiner Knizia is a master designer. He knows how to imbue those sorts of things into games. There are other things that haven't really, don't feel as fresh. But the tension moment to moment, the cooperation every now and then, this idea of, I'm going to jump in here and help you, that's there. That's the game arc. The ease of play is also fairly easy. Now, you do need to make sure you're reading ahead. That's always one of the tricks in this game. Make sure you read the upcoming events. Prepare for them. But really, I mean, you have a script set up here at the top of the board. Follow that. Help each other out. The game's easy to play. Scoring's a little wonky, but it always was. So no problem there. Lastly, tactics, luck, strategy. I'm going to go right down the middle on this one. I think this game, now, this just was published in 2020. Looking at it right now, it's not a great example of the kind of balance we can achieve between luck and strategy and tactics and cooperation in board gaming. This is really lucky. Drawing the tiles and having bad things happen to you can be very swingy. You can just get slammed. It can happen. You can also get away with a lot until near the end of the game where then things really, really get bad. So there is that. It does feel sort of swingy, for lack of a better term. It can be a little swingy, and there's a lot of luck in it. Even though you can plan, you can call on Gandalf when you need to. You can figure out what you should do now and you should do later. There's still a ton of luck, and the game is not that short. Okay? So there you go. This is ultimately a very serviceable anniversary edition of The Lord of the Rings. Why do I put quotes on that? anniversary does not mean deluxe. That's true. But it could have been a celebration of the game. Right now, it just feels like, I don't want to say a cash grab, but this is just being printed. I mean, they're not doing anything to it. If by anniversary edition they mean they're going to make it cheaper looking and worse than the original one I've got here, which is not the original one. This is already, a couple years after it came out. But if it's going to look worse than that one, then I don't know if you should be advertising anniversary edition. So there is that. That's my main thing. At the end of the day, because of the years that have passed to this game, and because of this production, this is going to get a 5 out of 10 from me. Yes, the game has certainly aged. I still very much feel nostalgia for my printing of the game. I think it's much prettier. But, yeah, this package, I don't know if I would recommend it, to anybody right now who does not, who isn't bringing anything to the table. Okay, as far as like, I remember when I played that back in the day. You're just looking for a Lord of the Rings game. You're looking for a modern cooperative game. You have better choices than this. So there you go. That's what I think of it. This gets, like I said, a 5 out of 10. And that's going to do it for me, everybody. Again, check out a video that I will be putting out soon. If it's not out yet, it will be out soon, comparing these two editions side by side. And hopefully that'll give a little more context to my opinions here today. All right, that's it. I'm Z Garcia. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.